A loose cannon is only useful if they get results. This is LA Cops.
There is a house in New Orleans they call the rising sun, and it's been the ruin of...
I've covered LA Cops since back when I worked as part of the editorial staff at Artistry and Games. To put it shortly, I was blown away by LA Cops. It was impressively fast, smart, and felt like a hybrid of the ideas present in Hotline Miami and older titles such as Bullfrog's original Syndicate. The mechanics were more strategic, emphasizing careful planning and use of a dynamic aiming system. The visuals were absolutely gorgeous. The early access build even had the beginnings of an appropriately cheesy main narrative that showed some potential. Yet somewhere along the line between the early access build and this final version, something went wrong. Levels I remember once being fluid are now more cumbersome. You now have to grind to give your characters a decent chance to survive the final levels instead of relying on your skills. I actually encountered more bugs than when the game was in early access, including a major one that has effectively prevented me from seeing the game's final 3 bonus levels. I had to rebind the character swap key just to get it to function properly, and as a result, had to not use a controller to play. Yeah, apparently this is after the game has been patched and finished? Which begs the question, what the hell happened? The LA Cops I played in 2014 was genuinely better and more fun than this version, despite having less content. If you're just walking in now, you probably wouldn't notice the design and level changes without someone pointing them out, but there are Steam threads about some of these bugs and issues that are still present. There are user-made workarounds to try and solve the issues because they still haven't been patched out. Now, there are some good changes. For instance, your AI partner is vastly less likely to die, and you're given more specific commands for them now, so they won't just kill everyone on first notice. There are far more levels added to the game, and 3 difficulties for each. The first 2 are actually pretty fun, but hardcore seems to be designed with masochists and perfectionists in mind and no one else. There's also finally co-op, although the lack of online play is a bit disappointing, so you have to at least have one controller to play the co-op locally. The art style is still as fantastic as ever, feeling like you are running around in a movie poster or a comic book while not just falling back on pixelated or cel-shaded graphics. Unfortunately, the bad changes outnumber the good ones. For one, the game's final levels feel far less climactic and almost rushed in their design. Instead of demanding perfection like Hotline Miami or just being a balls-to-the-wall action sequence or really challenging you strategically, it instead just throws waves of enemies at you in a large set of square rooms with limited cover. Instead, it's in the bonus levels where you actually encounter the better level layouts like what the 2014 build had, which is just confusing. Why are the better levels in the bonus sections and not in the final levels? The final levels also contradict the game's emphasis on arresting as many criminals as you can instead of shooting them up. Why do you suddenly break from the game's standard style of play in a game that is almost entirely about its gameplay? Discard the paper-thin plot that can't decide if it's a self-aware satire or a loving homage to 70s cop shows and films. The dissonance between your actions and what the characters do in the plot is so irritating that you almost wish the levels were just randomly generated rather than scripted to follow a narrative you will not be invested in. There might be a brief laugh here or there, but we're given no reason to care. It's a story without a heart or focus, so it just feels arbitrary at best. Also, the game pretty blatantly favors the 2 characters who are effectively the leads in the story, despite the fact you're supposed to be able to use anyone in these missions. Kowalski and Murphy get way better starting stats, and as a result, cut out some of the early grinding. You won't even care about the other cops. There's no major distinguishing characteristics other than their voiceovers and character models, so why even bother giving us more than 2 leads? Imagine if instead, Kowalski and Murphy were the only 2 and had different abilities unique to each other. That would be way better and still fit the buddy cop meets Miami Vice setting. And I know I keep bringing up the grinding, but you have to understand that it was not nearly as big a deal originally. It used to be that grinding gave you a bit of a boost on top of your usual stats. It was a reward for players who kept going and who want to give themselves an additional little goal to keep them coming back. Now it is a necessity to survive some levels. What makes that even worse is that it is terribly executed grinding. Take, for example, that beating higher difficulties doesn't increase how much experience you unlock. Yes, you might beat that mission on hardcore, but your only reward is an achievement. What this does is turn the game's first level, a donut shop, into a Destiny loot cave. You get the same amount of experience for taking down roughly 4 to 7 guys in a single floor building in a single level that you do for taking down an entire 3-story building with 40 armed criminals. No one thought this sounded like a bad idea. Really?
I don't want to hear it.
Maybe the bonus levels give you extra experience. I wouldn't know because, as I said, there's a stupid glitch that refuses to believe I have finished any of the final levels of the game, or any of the bonus levels I have unlocked. In fact, that emphasizes the entire problem with LA Cops. It still feels unfinished. It desperately needs a last patch, or some kind of fix to resolve at least the glitches. AI bugging out is one thing, but seriously, being unable to qualify as finishing a game's final level is a pretty damn bad glitch to leave hanging. I want to say that LA Cops is great. The aiming system still feels like the best alternative to Hotline Miami's. The actual stat upgrades and equipment upgrades themselves are worth investing in, as there's a wide variety of weapons to use. A few of the levels are still damn well impressive, and stages do have far more visual variety to them. The music is great. The in-battle dialogue is still hilariously campy, if nothing else. Enemies are varied enough to keep things interesting, levels have a fair amount of replay value themselves, and each gun handles distinctly, which is why this game is so frustrating to critique. On a moment-to-moment basis, LA Cops can be an exhilarating, enjoyable, twitch-based isometric strategy shooter, except it's also a horribly grind-heavy, imbalanced affair with a questionable narrative, all further hindered by notable glitches. I was rooting for this one, and was excited at the chance to review the final product. Sadly, the most I can give LA Cops is a 6 out of 10. I wish I could give it more, but I can't, not in its current state. This one genuinely hurts to dole out. This is Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes.